and people's lives in this church. Some of you may be feeling called to go with what we're going to be doing. And again, just because we're talking about a church planting, we are going to do something in this church. God is calling us to do something. We have to reach these people. That is what God's calling us to do. But if He's calling you and doing things in your life that is preparing you for that, that's great. And if He's preparing you to step up here at this church, then we need to respond to that as well. So,
thanks, Derek. Very good. Perhaps the clearest kind of picture I can just leave you is we're kind of moving from, go to the next slide, Isaac, being the commonplace church to becoming the commonplaces church, all right? We'd be a church, how do you like that? That's actually my best graphic design. Commonplaces. A church that exists in many common places around our city, and what God might call us to will be exciting and interesting. So, with that, I'm going to bring Chad up here, and he's going to walk us through some next steps that are related to your sheet and explain what a timeline for this might look like.
Well, good morning, Commonplace.
Good morning.
All right. One person's listening. Way to go, Rob. All right. So you can go ahead and start my slide, Isaac. Studies have shown that essentially from the time a church makes a decision to plan a satellite location and to make that public within the community in that particular neighborhood, you have a short window to actually accomplish that with community buy-in. And so the first thing I want to talk to us about in the process is that when we publicly announce, if God leads us in this direction and we obediently respond, when we publicly announce that we are going to step out in faith and begin a congregation. Isaac, you want to put that up there, buddy? These are going to go step by step. All right. And so what we mean by this is this, quite simply. If we've come to the point where we as a congregation are announcing in a particular neighborhood that we are planning on starting a church, it means we have already prayerfully decided that as a congregation. And that is not happening right now. We are starting the process of thinking about it. But what it means is we would have already prayerfully decided to plan. We would have already prayerfully discerned the neighborhood and the approximate location in which we were starting this plan. This is when we would begin to freely tell those we're trying to reach that we're starting a church in their neighborhood. The announcement starts that timeline, that 9 to 12 month window where we have to build the base and bring the community on board, bring the neighborhood on board to where we can actually have that community buy-in and pull it off. This is what starts this 9 to 12 month process. And if you go to the next one, after we do that, if the Lord leads us this way and we obediently respond, then we begin to learn the neighborhood. It means that we begin to get more intimate with this neighborhood and understand what are the specific needs. What are the demographics of this neighborhood? Where do they have weaknesses that with the gospel of Jesus and His church we can come alongside them and help bring life? We learn the neighborhood more intimately. We ask and answer questions like those needs, yes. What are potential strongholds that could keep the church from rooting? How about what expression of church would be relevant in this neighborhood? Some of the things that we've talked about and it's been alluded to, I thought it was absolutely hilarious when there was like the whoa moment of church in a church. But if you think about this idea, if the Holy Spirit is leading us to reach the lost, the hurting, and the marginalized in our city, in our community, maybe specific people groups come to mind for you, but the reality is that a $4, $5, $6 coffee isn't in their budget. And so, what is the expression of church that is relevant in their neighborhood? We ask and answer these questions. Now, as we go on, Isaac, hit the next slide for me. It means, in order to successfully plant another location, we need to establish relevant, repeating relational events. It means that we will be spending time in the neighborhood developing these relationships, meeting new people as we begin to meet their felt needs as well. This is where we will build the base that will become the body of the new plan, the repeating relational events. Now, as we move through this process, on the next one, Isaac, the launch team begins to meet on a regular basis within the neighborhood through these events, and the launch team are those who specifically feel called to go out of this congregation and be a part of establishing this new satellite location. That's who it's comprised of. We begin to focus more intently on the who, the what, and the how of the church plant. The team meets regularly, prays together, strategizes together, and plans very specifically for the upcoming launch at the new location. Right? As we move through that step onto the next step, we begin to have church without walls. What does that mean? So as we plan and prepare for a fully functioning church plant, we begin to have monthly outdoor services in a public space. This congregation has done this before, like church in the park. This is time where we actually worship in the neighborhood we intend to plant in. The people are a part of these public services and will hopefully become the body of the new plan. All of the previous steps have been building towards this time. Our goal here is to begin to be the church home of the individuals in the neighborhood. That's what we're doing. And then in our last step of the plan, we begin to have church with walls. So what this means is after months of meeting outside and planning and prayer and preparation, building relationships, meeting felt needs, reaching out, establishing a base, it means we move inside and begin to establish a presence of permanence and stability. Lord willing, we rent suitable space and begin to dig into the ministry of meeting new people and discipling them towards Christ. We grow as a congregation, we adapt to ministry and work towards spiritual maturity and the multiplication process starting over again as God wills and provides. Okay? So we have this window that says you have a 9 to 12 month turnaround to announce and to make that impact and to establish that presence. And so if you'll take your surveys, I want you to take a look at question number 2. With the understanding that from the time we would announce our intention to plant, to have a fully functional church with walls being a 9 to 12 month time period, when would you say is a good time to begin the church planting process? So this is something that we're answering for ourselves as a congregation. Does it start this coming spring? Does it start next fall? Does it start spring 21? Does it start fall 21? Or after this in 22 and 23? And we would ask that you would take a minute or so to prayerfully consider this, to circle an answer, and then also follow up with a response to that answer in the space provided.